Hello and welcome to Tony's Bonsai. Today I'm dealing with this monstrosity. In a tongue-in-cheek way, I've called this the worst group planting in the world ever, but I don't think it's far off. A couple of years ago, my dad gave me this sycamore and this ash that were just seedlings growing in his garden, and this was a field maple that grew in the pot. It was just naturally sown. I don't know where it came from. I put some wire on it, put a bit of movement in, and today's the day to get these separated and in their own pots. I love washing up bowls for planting trees in, but eventually they just become completely brittle. It's the sunlight that breaks them down, the ultraviolet. Let's have a look then and see what I'm dealing with here. See how the roots compare of these three different trees. I thought I'd seen the last of my limestone pots, but evidently not. No wonder it was so heavy. The first job then is just to get rid of all these weeds on the surface. When you've got so many as this, they normally come up pretty easy, like one thick kind of mat of roots. And this is full of liverwort. This is planted in a mixture of soil and peat, so they've quite liked it in here, these trees. You know, I think they've been relatively happy for a couple of years. It's time to move them on now. It's going to be interesting to see how these come apart and how the roots vary on the three different species. I know that field maple have very strong roots. Sycamore, they're also in the Acer family, that they're pretty tough. So I'm thinking all three are going to have good root systems. That'd be my guess. I think what I'll do, I'll just start kind of pulling them like this, and no, they're well matted together, these. They're well intertwined. Or maybe the maple isn't as intertwined as the other two. And if I can just work this soil out a bit. I think it's going to be separating the ash and the sycamore that's going to be the trickier job. But it shouldn't be too hard. Like I say, they've only been in here a couple of years, so, and they're pretty young trees. Although field maple have fairly large leaves compared to Japanese maple, you can make really good bonsai out of them. I've seen it online. I've seen some really good examples. In terms of ash and sycamore, it's a much more challenging task to get a good bonsai out of an ash or a sycamore, especially a sycamore. The leaves on these, people say they can be reduced, but even if you reduce them to a quarter of the size, they're still huge, because a large sycamore leaf can be the size of a dinner plate, a fully grown one. They're absolutely massive. Right, so that's out. That's the sycamore. And now it's these two. That's the ash that's grown into the field maple. And it's the field maple really that's the tree that I want more than the ash. I think this could be quite a nice tree. I like the movement that I've got into it. There we go. 3 trees. I've just been out and washed all 3 sets of roots, and they're quite interesting. The maple has got the least roots, a nice healthy root system, but there's not loads, but you know, not bad. The sycamore, that's got quite an interesting set of roots. Healthy again. But the ash, look at that. I mean, this ash was absolutely dominating the pot. Look at those roots. No wonder they're so difficult to get out, big trees. The other day I picked up a load of small pots off Facebook Marketplace. A woman was getting rid of them out of her shed, and they were either £1.50, the bigger ones were £3, but the small ones like these were £1.50. So I got loads of them, and I was hoping to get these trees in these. But looking at that root base, I'm not so sure. Let's start with the sycamore. I mean, I'm going to try and get this in one of these tiny pots because I don't want to waste a big pot on a sycamore. I'm not a fan. So I'm going to go for it and see what happens. It should be fine having the roots cut down, I think. And in terms of which pot, I really like this unglazed pot, so I'm not using that one. I really like this crackled glazed one as well. That's lovely, so I'm not using that. This green one, that's average. Black one, nothing special. The blue one, I quite like that blue. I quite like blue pots, me. I think they look good. And this is a lovely blue one. I like that. Oh yeah, and I like that blue one. And a brown. So I've got a range of options. I want to put this in one of these glazed ones that I'm not that keen on. Oh, it'll be quite some job cutting the roots down to get it in here. But can I do it? Will it survive if I hack these roots right back? I'm going to try. I want to do something different with this. There's no point me growing this in a big pot, developing it into a large tree, because I don't want a large sycamore in my collection. So by doing this, it'll either die or I'll have it in a nice tiny pot like that. Look at that. Yeah. And there we go. A sycamore in a bonsai pot. Now what will that turn into in the future? I've got no idea. Next up is this field maple, and as I said earlier, I do quite like this tree. So I've got the option of going with a slightly bigger pot, which will give it more chance of growing, being healthy. And it can either go in the green one or this brown one. Which does it look better in? I don't think it suits that one. And the good thing about this green one is, I think that'll look really good. Yeah, I like that in fact. I think this will look really good in when this comes into leaf. So I'm going to go for that. What I have noticed is there are a couple of dead roots round at the back. So I'll remove those first. You can tell they're dead because there's no fine stuff on them, and they're kind of bare, and they're a darker colour. There's quite a few of those actually. In fact, I'd say about half of them were dead, which is interesting. So we've got some roots coming from all the way up. So they start here, then we've got more there. And yet there's a few on the back as well. So that kind of seems like the point where the roots will begin, which is not too bad. Other than that, we've got this huge sort of taproot that comes down, and it's got to go, that. Let's get rid of that. I mean, flipping heck, that is all the roots. But it's a field maple. So, flipping heck, I didn't think they were all attached. Right, I'm going to switch to a smaller pot. That's that lovely little crackle glaze one. That's lovely. The thing with that large taproot is, it did have to go at some point. It may as well go now. Obviously, I don't have to cut any of these other roots off. Looks really nice in this glazed pot, this tree. Obviously, I'll be updating you through the coming months how these trees get on. And I think now it's time to see what I can do with that ash. Okay, let's take a look at these roots. We've got some interesting roots spreading out from a similar kind of point. And I think a bit like that field maple, I think what I need to do is remove all this bottom section. Like that. Take that off. That's much better. In fact, there's still another very thick root there. There's no need for that one. That can come off. And there's one root down at the bottom there that's quite thick as well. Let's get rid of that. And we're now down to quite a decent sort of set of roots. There's just one that's a bit high. That can go. And then all I need to do is pick a pot. Again, it can go in one of these small pots. This is like a black colour. That'll suit the ash, I think, the black. Sits quite nicely in its new home, this ash. What I'm going to do with it, style-wise, in the future, I've no idea. But for now, it's a lot more manageable. I certainly think they're looking a lot better than they did in that washing up bowl. And for me, they're going to be a lot easier to handle and they're going to take up less space. As always, thanks for joining me. Have a great day and I'll see you soon.